Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. Today I'll be speaking with convicted murderer Keith Griffith. In January 2014, Julie Griffith was found dead in her Reidland home in McCracken County after a fire was reported. Investigators determined her death was a homicide. She had been shot 3 times in the chest before the house was set ablaze. The fire also killed the couple's 2 dogs, which led to animal cruelty charges in addition to the homicide. Keith Griffith was arrested and indicted on multiple charges, including murder, first-degree arson, tampering with evidence, and cruelty to animals. During one of his first trials in 2015, the jury could not reach a verdict, so the case was not resolved at that point. The defense also filed motions challenging investigative procedures, including allegations of misconduct involving alterations to vehicle fuel data. While awaiting further proceedings, authorities uncovered additional wrongdoing. Keith had attempted to solicit a hit on Captain Matt Carter, the lead detective on Julie's case. That plot was foiled when the person he tried to hire alerted law enforcement, and the FBI confirmed Keith's involvement. In January 2016, Keith agreed to plead guilty to all charges, including the murder, arson, tampering with evidence, animal cruelty, and solicitation to commit first-degree assault. Keith Griffith was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Here's my interview with convicted murderer Keith Griffith.
Keith Griffith, born in Louisville, Kentucky, raised in Paducah, Kentucky.
Can you recall any positive memories that stick out to you from your childhood?
I can give you a lot of them. One of the big things was going fishing with my dad on the weekends. Being allowed to, be on my own during the day. We always had certain times we had to be in at night. In the afternoons, had to be home for meals. But I mean, I've got a lot of good memories as a child.
What about any negative memories? Can you recall any negative memories from your childhood?
I'm sure there were some negatives out there. There's not really, things that some people would call negative, I'd call disciplinary. So.
Okay. I know it was different back then as today. I know you can't really do much today, but back then you could get away with a whole lot, really, huh?
Yeah, probably. It was one of those things where you knew what the limits were. Getting out and very, very young, up until teenage years, it was pretty restricted. Other than just playing out in the neighborhood, but you could get out in the neighborhood, you could go up and down the street and not have to worry about somebody picking a kid up or getting, picked on by older kids or something, just walking up and down the street like you can today.
Right. Were your mom and dad together throughout your childhood?
Throughout my whole childhood, yep.
That's good. Did you get along with both your parents?
Got along with them very well.
Did you suffer any type of childhood abuse or trauma growing up?
No, none.
So what was your behavior like at home growing up?
Well, now I was raised in a Christian home, so it was pretty strict, but I had a lot of freedom as a child, and I didn't really, for a long time I was a rule follower, and, I think that's where I went astray later in life, and I mean later in life. If they said not to do something, I just didn't do it. Always obeyed my parents, probably to the nth degree. Of course, when I didn't is when I got in trouble.
What was your behavior like in school, more so focusing on your middle school and high school years?
Somewhat rebellious in a sense. But now I played sports. I played all 3 sports, small high school. So if you played one sport, you were halfway decent, you played all of them. So I played football, basketball, and baseball. So my time was occupied either with school or with practice or doing homework. I mean, so most of my behavior was acceptable. But like all kids, or most kids, I should say, I tried drinking, some drugs, not many. Never did stick to any of it. Smoking, trying to hang out later than I should. My dad always had a rule that said nothing good happens after midnight. So that was one of the rules he really stuck by. But most of my behavior was acceptable.
All right. So did you engage in any type of criminal activity as a juvenile?
None.
None?
None.
What about as an adult?
None.
No.
As an adult, I have mine would be more along the lines of I grew some weed. I never did smoke it, but I grew it and got rid of it, you know. But as far as any violent, I never committed a violent act until I was 54 years old.
So before we talk about that, tell me about your life, like prior to becoming incarcerated. In time for now.
You mean like? I mean, I've always worked. Most of my life, I've worked 2 jobs. I've had good jobs. I'd worked the second job just for extra stuff, or for vacations and stuff like that. I married my high school sweetheart. Had 2 kids. Got 2 grandkids. My oldest boy and I were very close. He was an extremely good golfer. He played all the sports, so I kind of was working with him more. The youngest boy didn't do as much as far as playing sports, so my activities with him would have been him mainly working in the yard and me just getting whatever he needed to do it, because that's what he liked to do. But we were a church-going family. Didn't really want for anything. We had everything we needed. Did the typical things. We took vacations. I coached my oldest boy in ball, went to ball games. But I don't think there's anything really abnormal or out of the way. But most of my life was a good life.
So, how was your marriage up until the crime took place? Like, how would you say that it was?
I would say for the first 20 years, it was really, really good. And not that it was bad. These last few years, it just, we kind of grew apart and had different ideas. That last year, I'd had 3 surgeries, and I think that kind of skewed what I was thinking. I was cheating on her. I had thought she had cheated on me, which I know she had now. It was just not in my head because of what I was doing. But even during that time, we pretty much got along. But with me being on the road like I was, we weren't together a whole lot. I'd be gone 5 or 6 days at a time. Just a couple of times a year, I'd be gone almost a month at a time. So the mind just kind of goes in the wrong direction when you're not where you're supposed to be. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And how long were you married for?
Let's see, we got married in 77. She passed away in 14, so it was at 37 years.
Okay. Okay, so you said like the first 20 years are pretty good, but the next 10 were pretty rocky.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even say they were bad or rocky. It's just that we didn't communicate. We didn't get along. As far as agreeing on everything. But like I say, in the last 15 years, I was on the road with another company, and I'd always had a job close to home before. And when you're gone like that, your thinking goes wrong. It shouldn't, but it does.
Let's talk about the crime you're in prison for now. You're serving 30 years in prison for murder, arson, tampering with physical evidence, and criminal solicitation and assault in the first degree. Can you walk me through everything that led up to the murder of your wife, Julie, and what the aftermath was?
Well, it was really a spur of the moment. I know it sounds hard to believe. I had to have had some intention beforehand for it to hit me like it did. I make a phone call. She tells me she don't have time to talk to me,
you have 1 minute left.
We had been on we've not been physical for a while. So that's what was leading me up to think that something was going on with her. Of course, like I say, I was already in the mode of cheating. I was doing it. I thought it was owed to me. So there's where my mind had went. But that night I'd called and she didn't answer the phone, or she answered it and then said she didn't have time to talk to me. So I immediately went off the deep end, I guess. And that's when I drove home and done what I done. You can tell that it wasn't planned out because there was too many loose ends there. The dogs almost stopped me when I got to the door. And then I burnt the house. I changed my clothes. I sped trying to get a speeding ticket because I was over 200 miles away when I done it, spending the night. So I drove that distance both ways. I don't know. I pretty much just got in a blind rage, and which I've never done that before, and I've never done it since. It's something that I regret more than you can ever imagine. I miss her every day, and I miss my kids and my grandkids, and it's something I can't take back. And I can tell them I'm sorry as much as I want, and they're the ones that's going to have to either accept it or not. But it's something I regret every day. So I don't know if that gives you enough information, or if
no,
you
that
need
does.
more. Or...
Yeah, no, that does. That. I mean, I don't want you to go into like gruesome details or anything. I'm just always curious.
It was something that had been leading up really for a long time as far as our physical activity between us. We were, believe it or not, we were still best friends. We just weren't in a marital sense. That might help explain a little bit of it too.
So how long after the murder had happened and the house had been burned down were you arrested? Was it the same night, or was it like a day later, a couple of days later?
It was 7 days later. It was 7 days, but because of the evidence, and to this day they've never proven it. I ended up taking a plea deal because they drug it out for so long.
So when you say there was no evidence, there was no physical evidence or anything like that. So what did they give you your own testimony then?
Well, there was a lot of circumstantial evidence, but there was no physical evidence. There was no video. There was no DNA. There was no weapon. They used the media to try to convict me. Of course, we had a hung jury, and they were allowed to keep me incarcerated and try me again without any new evidence. And the new trial was coming up when they got me on the conspiracy. And the FBI dropped the charges on the conspiracy, and the state picked it up 2 days before my next trial. And the judge had told them they could use it if they could get an indictment through the grand jury, which is easy to get in the state of Kentucky. That they could use in the trial. Well, that would have put some type of motive on the case itself, saying that the conspiracy, I tried to do the conspiracy, which was to have a sheriff killed, which I didn't. I don't know. I guess I'm guilty of that because I told him where the guy lived. So. In reality, I could have been convicted on that conspiracy because I gave them the information of where he lived. But they were going to use that in the trial, and my attorney said, you're tired. They're going to get some kind of conviction this time, and so I took a plea deal pretty much to stay out of the death penalty. The murder was 25 at 85, and then they tacked on 5 at 20 for the conspiracy.
What was the official charge that they charged you with? Was it attempted murder or conspiracy to commit murder?
Conspiracy to have a police officer or official killed.
So after you were convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison, how did you react emotionally?
It was extremely hard because that was the first time I actually faced up to what I'd done. And at that time, I was still talking to my kids, and that helped a little bit. But coming to realize what I'd done and what I'd given up was extremely depressing. It was like a wake up call, but sending me the other way. I mean, I went in, and for a pretty good while there was a pastor that came in that helped me through a lot of that time. That was coming to the jail, and I was actually about the only person that he seen when he come in. And the chaplain for the jail itself, he had me down at his office several times talking to me, and they helped me through it. And not that I'm over it by any means, but I'm in a better place because I've admitted what I've done. I've come to live with what I've done. I've forgiven myself. Now, whether anybody else does or not, but the only way I feel like I can go on is to forgive myself for it and try to move on.
Have you forgiven yourself for it?
I feel like I have. Yes, I still have recollections of what I've done, and it drags me back down. But then I have to tell myself that I have to move on, and the only way that I can do that is to forgive myself for what I've done, and hope that my kids down the road will forgive me.
So after you were convicted and after you were sentenced, I should say, do you remember what the ride was like on your way to prison?
I do. I sat in the county jail for another 8 months after I was sentenced. And that was the hardest thing, was sitting there. But that ride from Paducah to LaGrange which is about 250 miles, was a wake-up call for what was about to come. It was a relief because now I knew that I could move on, getting out of the county, getting to some place where I could get some exercise. I could get, because in the county you're stuck in a smaller cell constantly. We very rarely got any rec at our county jail. But here in the prison, I was able to get into a routine, and that's what I was hoping in that ride, is that I could get myself into a routine where the days could pass and I could occupy my mind and get my exercise and maybe at one point in time I didn't care if I got any programs or not, but as I've been getting programs, they tend to help. Helps you see yourself a little bit better.
What kind of programs do you do?
I've done anger management. I've done a parenting class, which when they gave it to me, I thought was kind of silly because I had grandkids, but it helped with some of my thought process. The MRT's been very helpful. The moral therapy recognition therapy. Let's see, and then I've done some vocational classes too, and I'm lined up to do. I've done trauma, and I'm scheduled to do untangled relations and thinking for good. Everybody says those are good programs, so we'll see.
So besides going to the programs, how do you these days?
Well, my days start pretty early. I get up at 3:45 every day, and I do 45 minutes or so worth of Bible study, and then from there I work in the gym, so I can be over there as much as I want. I can do a lot of reading. I don't work out much anymore. I've gotten past it in my age, but I walk about 3 or 4 hours a day around a track. So just trying to keep myself in some kind of healthy shape anyway.
Have you been diagnosed with any mental illnesses?
Are you talking about mentally?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've not talked to, be honest with you, I really don't trust the psychiatrist here. But when for my trial, they had the psychiatrist come in and said everything was normal, and then they had a guy come in from U of L, and they said there was nothing there. So I would say probably not. I mean, I've never been diagnosed. I don't know that there's anything. I'm sure, I hate to say I'm sure there's something there. My sister always believed that, our birth parents, our father was killed when I was 6 months old, and then our mother gave us up to our grandparents. And we were actually raised by an aunt and uncle, but they're the only parents I ever knew. Because I was, like I say, I was 6 months old when all this happened. So I didn't know any different, but my sister always says that she thinks that had something to do with it, but I don't really think so, but you never know.
Is there anything that you would like the public to know about yourself or your case for that matter? I don't, I just want people to know that I took responsibility for what I did. I hate what I did. I wish that I could have a second chance, which I can have.
I loved my wife. I love my kids. I love my family. Family's first to me. What happened, I don't know if I'll ever be able to put a finger on exactly what happened other than just stupidity and a moment of anger that lasted too long. But I think today, from what I've done in here, I think I'm a better person than when I came in. And I'm going to try to improve every day. And I'm going to try to go, when I get out, I'm going to try to be a useful citizen to this community and try to help other people.
So when you're released, do you have a plan set in place to where you won't reoffend and end up back in jail or prison?
I truly believe I do. If you look at the numbers, the people that do what I do normally don't reoffend. But I'm not taking a chance on just that. I've bought a piece of property up here in Louisville. I bought 36 acres up here, and my plan is to develop it. I've got 3 or 4 different ideas about doing it, but one of them is actually putting transitional housing in there for inmates that have no place to go. I would like to do something like that with it. I've got 3 or 4 different little business plans. A lot of it's going to depend on what my kids are doing. If my kids are in my life at that time, I plan on trying to start a business that they can have and take off. I'd like to do something with them. But most of it's going to be surrounded around that property. I've got enough to do there and to develop that should keep me pretty busy. And I think that's the big thing is getting occupied, getting in a routine out there and staying busy. So all I can do is I can go out there with a clear mind and a clear thought process and try to do the things that I think will help the community where I can help. I'd like to help other inmates. I think there's a lot of guys in here that have nobody or nothing. I've got brothers and sisters, and they all still support me. Not financially necessarily, because I have my own way to take care of myself. But they support me mentally and in a family matter to try to help me through all this too. So I have that support when I hit the streets. Well, you think about it. I'm gonna be out of the. I have to do 21 years is what I have to do. 21 and a quarter.
You have 1 minute left.
I'll be served out, and then it'll be. I'm going to need help being out off the street for 21 years. I'll need help getting reacclimated to the street.
So before we conclude this interview, is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. I can't think of anything else that. I mean, if you've got what you need, I've pretty much said what I think I need to say, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that it gives you something to go off of here.
That was my interview with convicted murderer Keith Griffith. Don't forget to subscribe. Go leave a review on Apple Podcast or unforbiddentruth.com. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.